What's up, fam? Hope everybody's doing fantastic out there. Today we are taking a look at a pair of pretty daggum cool knives from Ketuo. Um, we are looking at the Triad V3 Felix Denishwara Designs, or FD Designs. Again, pretty cool knife. This is a knife we've seen on the channel before with the V2, but they have made some slight changes. I'll be quite honest with you, I don't know what the exact changes were, other than except for one thing that is very obvious, and that's a secondary lock. I'm not the biggest fan of those, but in this case, it doesn't really affect the knife in general, so no real concerns of that from me. But we'll go ahead and jump into these. So there are two different versions. We have the standard shred carbon fiber, and then you have the blue shred carbon fiber, which you guys can guess which one is my favorite and which one we will be spending the most amount of time on. Now, there are two different blade finishes, I believe. Yeah, so you have the satin here, which is, again, my favorite, and then you have a sandblast or a bead blast finish as well. So just be aware of that. You do have two different blade finishes. Again, my favorite being the satin, so that's the one we are going to spend the most time on. Go ahead and take some time to clean this blade off. So these are thanks to a pass around, so I do thank the homie Ray with Everyday City Carry for allowing me to be in this pass around. Yeah, I really enjoy getting to take a look at more Reich and Ketuo stuff, so really happy about that. But let's talk about the knife. So this is, again, the Triad V3. It is a button-operated liner lock. So you guys can see that there. So many modes of deployment, I lose count, but you can also operate that liner by hand instead of just by the button. You have the reverse flick through the blade hole. You have the reverse flick with the thumb stud. Oh, let's get it. You have the thumb stud action. You got the flipper, and then you have the front flipper. So this thing is literally every option known to man. I mean, you can even do the press the button and flick it out, which I've never been that good at. Detent on them is a little on the light side, which is going to happen when you have so many modes of deployment. You kind of have to tune everything to be a little on the light side, but it's not terrible. I honestly wouldn't change much of it. Personally, for me, I would do away with the flipper. I think the flipper is the most, I don't want to say unusable, but I think the flipper is the worst of the multiple deployment options that are here. I think the other ones all work slightly better for what you're doing because that detent is tuned a little on the softer side. The flipper is, I think the flipper is the one that kind of gets the most mistreatment from that. That being said, because the flipper is so high and the flipper design, it does still work, flawlessly, quite honestly. But again, out of all the deployment methods, the flipper suffers the most from that detent strength. That's the words I was looking for. Again, kind of echoing what I said in the original review, I absolutely love this design. I think it's a really cool looking knife. It's few little odd and end things that are just kind of off for me, but in general, I think it's a really, really cool design. We'll talk about the my nitpicks as we go along. Let's go ahead and jump into our close-ups here. And we will look at both knives up close and personal just so you can see the differences in the blade finishes and everything. So here we have that kind of that marbled carbon fiber with the blue streaks running through it. There's your button. So in the closed position, your button is exposed a little bit higher than the pivot there. T6 and T8 hardware. We do have a reversible pocket clip, a massive lanyard loop here. I would love to see them get rid of that. If they do a V4, get rid of that. Just make this whole part here, the handle, make that all carbon. Keep that all there. You don't need the lanyard loop. You don't need this massive thing on there. Maybe even just close it up and just have, this part be the lanyard loop or, whatever. But if you have to, have the lanyard hole there, then, build it into the backspacer, make it more hidden, whatever. But I think this does take away from the looks of the knife. If this was all fully made out to be carbon fiber, I think it would look a lot better. I do like the jimping that runs down the length of the backspacer. I think that's a nice touch, gives it a different look. Of course, you have titanium liners in here. Titanium pocket clip, typical with Ketuo. Ketuo pocket clips are always really nice. I love their pocket clip. No issues there. We are contoured and chamfered all the way around. Again, we have a reversible clip that is nice and inset there. No issues. There's that secondary lock, so that will lock in the open position. It will not lock in the closed position. So when the knife is open, you can push that lock there. And that slides in a, let's see if I can see it. There you go. There you can see it. So there's a little bar right there. I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see that. Little bar up there at the locking tab that prevents you from pushing that button. Now you can, from what I understand, you can still close if you push. Yeah, if you push the liner lock, you can still push the liner lock out of the way, but that will prevent you from pressing the button and disengaging that lock. It does kind of get in the way of that button, but you can still force that liner over. You have to, I'm using that word correctly, you do have to force that liner over to be able to push it out of the way far enough to get that to close. So just be aware of that, you know, if you're thinking it's going to turn it into a fixed blade or some BS like that, then, you know, it's not. Lockup is good on there. We'll go ahead and keep going in with what we were looking at here. But yeah, there's that lock there. Outside of that, no real issues, and then you have the Ketuo logo there. Jimping on the flipper is nice, no issues there. Jimping on the blade is all well done. Thumb studs are decent. They're not the best, they're not the worst. They work for their purpose. Centering is spot on. Looks like we might have a slight off grind on our tip. Not terrible. Go ahead and take a look at our blade here. So we have an absolutely beautiful dual ground blade here, compound ground. We have a hollow grind here, and then a flat on our Tanto tip. This is like a drop Tanto, whatever you want to call it. Have a swedge there. I love, love, love that blade grind. I think it looks great. Beautiful, beautiful job here. We do have M390. There is your maker's mark as well, or your designer's logo. Nothing on the other side. We do have a finger choil, and plunge grind is done well. Sharpening itself is, I mean, it's Reich and Ketuo, so there's really not going to be any question on that. Thing is a absolute freaking razor, and the sharpening is done very well. And then the only thing is we do have that off grind on the tip, and you can see that right here. So how that tip is just slightly askew there, and then on this side we have a full grind all the way to the tip. Let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. So there we can see that grind, how that grind is nice and straight there. And then we flip the knife over, and we can see how, let's get it in the camera. There we go. So you can see how it got, just because it's going straight, and then it just very slightly goes towards the tip. And that's just enough to make that tip look a little bit wonky. I mean, and it's not bad by any means, but it is just slightly off. Very, 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 very slightly. I don't know if I showed lockup. Lockup looks good. Let's go ahead and bring the other knife in here so we can see that carbon fiber up close and personal. So there's that shred carbon fiber. Does have a few voids here and there. Not too shabby. Since we do have a second one here, we'll take a look at our tip and at our centering. Centering is perfect, and tip is, again, just barely off on this one. And then here we have that that sandblast or that bead blast on the blade here. We've got a little bit of oil on the knife as well, so let's go ahead and just kind of clean that off so you might be able to see that a little bit better. Let's check our grind on this one. Grind looks good, and see if we have the same issue. So see on this one we have the full grind there. So this one the tip looks a little bit better. We do have just a slight little off grind right there at the very tip, but all in all, a really good job done by Ketuo, or Reich as it were. Ergonomics, I don't think they've changed at all on the knife. You know, you do have a pretty substantial choke up spot here. It's nice and comfortable. Personally, again, with this size knife, I would prefer to have all blade there. I don't need that choke up spot on this size of a knife. You know, you're not dealing with a massive blade or a massive knife, so I would much rather have that all be usable blade. And then, but again, that's personal preference. It is comfortable. It does work in the hand very well. The knife in the hand in general is fantastic. No issues there. Action is phenomenal. Like we talked about, the detent is just ever so slightly on the light side, but again, for all those modes of deployment, it's understandable. They all work. Like I said, they all work fine. Again, if I were to make it my perfect knife, I would delete that flipper, and then I would have every other thing there. Honestly, yeah, because the front flipper works really good. So with the front flipper and a flipper, usually the flipper gets in my way. So that would be why I would, why I would say the flipper would have to be the one to go, just because it's, like I said, it does get in the way with that front flipper a little bit for me. Outside of that, pretty stinking cool knife. Like I said, there are 2 different versions. Excuse me. Go ahead and take a look at our hardware here. And those are all T6 hardware. Everything is looking good. No issues there so far. All right, let's go ahead and check the other one just so we have a full comparison, because if we've got 2 of the same knife, I definitely want to check them out just to make sure everything is the same across the board. Yeah, these all look great, so no issues there. Quick size comparisons, and we will get this show on the road. QSP Penguin. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I actually said the specs on this knife. For whatever reason, I got into, I don't know why. So it is a 3.2-inch blade with a 2.93 cutting edge. It's a 3mm thickness, 7.61 inches on the overall length, with a 4.41-inch handle. 3.2 ounces, really well done on that. Really nice. It's a 1-to-1, so pretty good there. And it is M390 done at 59 to 61. Price tag on these is $235 normally. Right now, they're on sale for $215. I will have that linked down below. Sorry I missed that in the beginning of the video, so please forgive me there. Anyway, taking a look at our size comparisons now, so that kind of fits into it anyway. Drop bear coming in hot. So it's going to be right in that same wheelhouse, again, as most of the knives that I have on the table. Militol, Bel Air, Malibu, PM2, and then MSI. And that is all of them. So, yeah, I'm really torn on this knife. I like it a lot. Like, I really do like this knife. I will most likely pick one up. We'll see how that goes. But I do really like the blue here. I like the satin blade. I think it's done very well. It's just I'm having to be a little more selective about what I'm adding to the collection here recently. But this is certainly one that is on the list, and one that I think I will be adding. I do really like what Reich and Ketuo are doing. So very, very interested to see what you guys think. So let me know in the comments down below. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you. Please remember to be kind, be humble, and be EDC. Y'all take care.